Tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
There's that music.
One last time,
that's right.
Before next season.
That's right. It's already the season finale.
Yeah.
My, how it just went so fast.
It was a fast season, man.
That's right. Defiance Season 3, Episode 13, Upon the March We Fittest Die.
Welcome to the after show.
It is the after show here. But before we get started, tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Jesse Klein, and you can find me on Twitter at JessKlein1. That's JessKlein, the number 1.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter at SMan80. That's SMan80. And of course, subscribe on YouTube and SoundCloud and iTunes. Rate us, comment, let us know what's going on. We love hearing from you guys every single week. And you can keep the conversation going on Twitter using hashtag ABTVDefiance. So yes, the final episode of the season. What are your overall thoughts, Jesse?
I liked it. I thought it was thematically, like, it really helped end this season.
Mm-hmm.
We got all of our narrative ends tied up. It was a really good emotional and kind of storytelling way to end the season. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I love the overall just action, you know, just continuing with the theme of the action this season. It's been nonstop. And it kept with that, and I also love the way that the episode had a lot of twists too to it.
Yeah,
kind of kept you guessing on what was happening. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, it really it was a great kind of ending for this season. Like, it was, I couldn't have imagined it being better.
Wow, that's quite the.
I enjoyed it.
Quite the 5-star review there.
Yeah.
But, you know, we were talking from last episode and how it ended. And essentially, it did exactly what we thought. It picked up right where it left off in episode 12. Yeah. So we got to see, you know, them back in the household there, the Macaulay household with Kinsey getting ready to eat the baby.
I know. I can't believe that this part of the episode is, like, in my brain just kind of glossed over.
Mm-hmm.
It was a huge part, and in my brain I was like, oh yeah, that happened.
Well, because there was just so much that happened in this overall episode. But, you know, it was exactly sort of what I expected. Yeah. You know, we were talking about it from last episode, assuming that Daytak was going to come in and sort of save the day. That was what we were kind of expecting.
He totally pins Kenzie to a wall.
Yeah.
And gets his family out of there.
Yeah, so it was perfect because it was a way of getting them to escape, but without actually killing her, obviously, because she was so strong. But a great way to kind of move the plot forward there, while still keeping that action really intense. And also uniting the Tar Clan in one moment. Like,
Stama pleads with Kenzie and is like, take my life over the child's life. Then says, take my free will, anything, just don't kill the child. Kenzie won't listen.
Right.
And
the girl doesn't listen.
So Alak sees that Stama does truly care for Luke and sees that she is trying to be a good mother and a good grandmother. So we get that kind of redemption for Stama.
Right.
We get a couple redemptions for Stama in this episode. And then we also get some more redemption for Daytak, where he comes in and just spikes her to a wall.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and getting that resolution, too, that we wanted in kind of one fell swoop there, because then we see that little scene when they're in the roller, and Alak is like, yeah, Mom basically saved us if she, you know, with her talking and kept Kinsey distracted. So, you know, we get that resolution now where the family's kind of back in solid footing, and it was a really good way, again, to just kind of wrap it up quickly, but still keep, you know, the action intense by keeping Kinsey around and knowing that she was going to escape, obviously, from that pin. So it was good, and I liked it because you didn't have to go too deep with it, and it was a great way to pick up from the end of that action.
Yeah.
And that cliffhanger from episode 12.
And then we get the interesting Defiance opener.
Yeah.
Like the season 1 Defiance opener,
yeah.
which was kind of cool.
It was really cool. I really like the way they did it. That's what in a lot of ways, and I'll get to this towards the end, but it just kind of almost had a very wrap up kind of feel to it.
Well, it was a good way to end the season for sure.
It just really did. But it had the kind of little nostalgic in there.
Yeah,
kind of felt like a little Star Tours, like ride when we're going on the spaceship and everything. So it had a lot of like really cool kind of nostalgic kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
No, I love the way they did that with that intro there, and like right there, and then just go right into the show. That was a cool little thing they did.
Yeah, and we see them like planning on we see them with Docule like planning this away party. Daytak comes in with a shotgun and tries to kill Yule. I mean, yeah, it was a great way to go immediately from the intro into action again.
Right. Yeah, and it was kind of funny to see them planning this whole thing out. It was just so complicated that I was like, okay.
Well, well, a lot of Docule's answers were like, just trust me, I got this.
Right.
And you kind of got to feel like we were both talking, like it feels like a suicide mission for Doc, which we later got confirmed. But it seemed like, she went through so much this entire season. And the fact that she's responsible for so much suffering, even though it wasn't like her fault or anything like that, the fact that it happened, I think she kind of needed to go on a suicide mission just for her character. Steven, you don't laugh at me. I'm talking in a narrative sense. I'm not talking in like
that
she needs to die. I'm just saying in the way you would tell the story, she kind of needed, because she was beyond redemption with the city, and she was feeling so guilty that she needed a way to redeem herself while still being released from the responsibility of the town.
Yeah, and it was sort of her way of making that ultimate sacrifice, knowing that only she could do this and being able to take care of this and have all the nodes and neck ports and everything in her.
That was difficult to watch.
Oh man! But she was like really the only one that I think could have done that. You couldn't do that with a human and a lot of the other, and be able to do that.
Well, I think specifically Indogene were made to be able
to be like a computer in that sense, and
it was crazy how beautiful she looked at the same time that she was like in all this pain, where it looked like she was in like an orchid that had closed around her, and I didn't really realize that. Like the inside of the petals were all just needles until we saw it closing in on her.
Actually, I thought she looked kind of hot. She was like rocking these like knee-high boots, and she had like the turtleneck. I was like, she's looking good.
Sure, yeah.
Where's she been? I know. It's like
before she had the needles put in her, she looked sexy.
She did. I was like, wow, where did this come from? Like hot Docule here.
But when she gets a spike driven through the top of her head, and she's leaking ooze,
then it wasn't quite so sexy anymore. But it was like, because even you made the comment when she was wearing the turtleneck. It's like, oh, is she being, does she have the thing back in her neck again?
I was worried. I think they kind of did a misdirect.
They did, because as soon as you brought that up, I was like, that's true. She could, because now she's on the ship. We don't know where Kinsey is. We don't know what's going on. Maybe she is controlled.
We see Kinsey seeing the pods going up to the ship, and we don't know if it's the last pod or if Doc Yule's still on the ground. And when Doc gets on the ship, she does a weird like duck, like out of the way, and it reminded me, and she was all of a sudden like very business, and it reminded me of when she was spiked, and I was like, oh man, I hope Doc's not data spiked.
Yeah, because it's a good point, because they are trapped on the ship, and like we said, we didn't know, and seeing her in that turtleneck, which she doesn't normally dress like that, it was like, oh, that could be a very big misdirect. But no, they just wanted her to look all hot.
Yeah, they wanted a hot Yule, man.
Hot Yule, and the hot Yule she was. But yeah, I mean, that again, it was really crazy. Also, the way they brought all of them up there too.
Yeah, well, the thing where the mayor gets Amanda when she gets gutted, so that it brings Arissa up with them, was real intense. Where we see that Kenzie has gone full on craze balls. Like she now the Omek are eating themselves.
Well, because there were only 7 Omek left, and I guess now 6.
Yeah.
And they can't feed on anything else because now the town has cut off their supply essentially. And so they don't have any food left. And I was like, girl will not be questioned. She was like, you are doing this. And you are going to do as I say because I am the all-mother.
Yeah, and she killed one of them and was like, if you want to eat, here you go.
Yeah, here you go. You can eat you can be a cannibal now.
And then sent them on hunting parties.
Yeah.
And they full on killed, if there were 6 left, 2 got killed by Berlin and Amanda, and then 3 got killed by Amanda as well. Were they counting Kinsey as the 6th? Or is
I don't know. Yeah,
is there
if
one?
they did, I think so, because then it would have wiped them all out. Because then once the rest of the pot, I think that would have been it.
Or is there one?
There's one still on the loose.
Still on the loose.
Still running around.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Or were they not? Oh, you know what? The 6th one is the one that Kenzie killed. Because they have no idea that Kenzie killed one.
Yeah.
And so, all right.
So I feel like we zeroed it out.
We've killed all of them.
We've accounted them all now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was funny. I was laughing about that because that's why I wrote it. My girl is taking control here, and she is not happy, and she is not going to be questioned.
Yeah. There's a really interesting kind of thing about the Olmec culture, about taking strength from other people and adding it to your own, and like the fact that the Olmec consume intelligent species in order to become strong, and like the fact that they have a rule that Olmec do not eat Olmec, and then Kenzie breaks that rule and they start eating themselves, was a very interesting kind of like, oh, Kenzie, like now no one knows what's going on. Like even the other Olmec like don't know or trust her. They're scared of her as well.
Well, don't you feel like that was sort of the final thing, like of her final descent there was when she's now making them, like she was just already crazy, but now she just went past
beyond redemption.
Yeah. Like at that point where she's having them basically eat themselves. Yeah. To feed. So yeah, that to me was the final line for her. And then I like that little moment with Alak and Orisa. Yeah, we get just that brief little moment with them with the baby.
Yeah, there was kind of a hint to it earlier in the season.
Right, and we talked about it, and we actually just talked about it in the last episode. Was that didn't feel like they were just going to do that as a throwaway. Yeah, that they were going to revisit that again, and that potentially there could be something there. Yeah, as far as a relationship, maybe not right away, but something that they could explore in season 4 or whatnot. So
and like the cute dialogue of like he likes you, and like her being like, good, I like him. Yeah, it's like clearly we're not talking about the baby.
Exactly,
we're talking about you guys liking each other. It's fine. It's fine, everyone.
We're all adults here. We get it. We understand. So Orisa could be a thing.
Yeah, in the future. Yeah, and
could be a thing.
And predictions for next season. Yeah, I think it's probably going to happen. Yeah. Don't hit the predictions button. We're not there yet.
Can you imagine like, okay, 12-minute show. All right, we're done. Yeah,
we're done. So we see this boarding party. That means Amanda and Berlin are staying behind and protecting Defiance. Berlin, I feel like Berlin was left on the cutting room floor of this episode.
I did too, and that was what I was going to say. It was weird. It was almost like she didn't even need to be in this episode because she didn't really have a lot to do, and it's still weird to me and still feels... Her character's situation feels very unresolved to me. Yeah. Because of how she left and then she came back and we have no idea really why and the whole thing with Conrad. So that was to me very odd. It was almost like she was a wasted character in this episode.
I feel like she got cut out of a lot of stuff just because at the end of the episode where it shows everyone looking up at the newly made arc. Yeah. Like the camera does like spend a lot of time on her, but like we get no emotional closure or anything from that because it's like we saw her shoot one Olmec, and we saw her kind of not do anything the entire episode. So it felt like Berlin got kind of left on the cutting room floor there.
Yeah, it did. It was weird. It was a wasted use of her character, and I do kind of do wonder if like what their original plan was with that, and then they cut it back, but then they had such integral scenes there that she had to kind of stay in there. Yeah. But again, I do feel like her character is the most unresolved of everybody else there.
Yeah, because we also got a resolution with Stama and Amanda.
Right. They had a really nice moment there.
Yeah, where Stama is staying behind and like helping,
cleaning her wounds,
helping with the wounded and stuff like that. And she had that great line with, you have the power to make people want to be better around you and inspire them to be their best selves. And it was a great kind of moment where Stama, I feel genuinely, for the first time, is genuinely apologizing to Amanda.
Right.
And is upset that their friendship is no longer a thing.
It's been frayed and potentially could not be resolved or healed. But again, that's what I kind of noticed with Stama, even though she has a very gray area with those two sides to her and everything. We've really seen these past couple episodes, we've really seen her grow all the way back with the Tevgen relationship.
Yeah.
And we've really watched this character really grow and have an authentic side and really care, and seeing her with her love for her grandson. So we've been able to see this other side of her this season that we never really saw before.
Yeah, well, I think it's a bit of that, and I think it's a bit of like even that entire speech. I was like, is Stama lying? Like that entire speech, I was like, do we know if she's like maneuvering and trying to figure out like to get something from Amanda? Like what's going on? Like it's gonna take a long time before
you can fully trust her.
Stama, yeah.
But you've seen her kind of be knocked down a few pegs this
For
season,
sure,
and really have to kind of grovel and get herself back, and being shunned by the town. So she's really been knocked down a lot.
Yeah.
And so you really kind of see this, that she's had to deal with that. And so I feel like we've seen a growth, but you're right. It's going to take a really long time before you really are like, okay, is she 100% being truthful here, or is she the scheming Stama that we know that's out for whatever her best interests are?
Yeah.
So it will take a lot. But it was kind of fun to watch that. And I did like that healing scene between the two of them. And, that was an interesting dream that Amanda has. Well, after, that, like, whole gauzy, weird...
Not really a dream, just, like, witnessing the
Well,
OMAC.
witnessing, but, like, in a kind of, like... I don't want to say dream, but it was sort of like she was out of it. Like, she was gauzy she was medicated, and it wasn't quite, Yeah,
we see her get the drugs at the beginning of that last scene, and we see her kind of witness the people taking all of the other people and like saying that she's like spoiled meat or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And she has a great kind of redeeming moment, like blood coming out of her gut.
She rips out the IV and just like
grabs
you watch
the
it.
Pistol.
Of course, she's in those heels though.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? The heel boots? We were both like, come on.
I was like, those look like they're difficult to walk in.
First of all, she's like laid up in bed in a hospital type room, and now she's wearing these like
wearing boots.
Like, come on, people.
Especially with the blood. Like it was a very much like a. It reminded me of like Die Hard, where she's like she's bandaged, she's got blood coming out of her, and instead it's like these weird, I don't know, what are they, wedges? Is that type of shoe?
I know. I'm like, what is going on?
And I was like, how is she standing in those after losing so much blood
in those things to begin with? People,
I've never been at a doctor's and they'll be like, oh yeah, keep your crazy boots on.
Heels on, and don't worry, you're dying and you're recovering, but don't worry.
But she still has an awesome moment where she caps 3 OMEC and then kind of collapses
and then
after saving them. And it's a good moment for her. She has something to do,
which again she kind of needed after hitting her low point last episode. But the funny thing was, I was watching that with that whole little lovey-dovey scene she had with Nolan, and I saw, Samir there, thinking like, oh, he's gonna like kill her or something.
I thought the same thing when he was putting the drug in. I was like, maybe that's poison.
Maybe it's poison. He wants to take her out because he wants, her out of the way with his whole weird fandom towards Nolan.
Maybe Samir's like super obsessed with Nolan.
It's like that stalkery thing. He's got to get her out of the way.
No one deserves Nolan. He's too perfect.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Kind of thing.
Exactly. And I have to have all of the attention.
Well, just like the perfect, like he's perfect. You don't deserve him, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no.
No, he doesn't.
She saves Samir.
She does.
So maybe Samir will be obsessed with her
Both
as
of them
well.
Now. Wow.
I think. Well, we'll go back into predictions. Don't do it, Steven.
I know every time. It's like it's Friday night. I'm ready.
It's not. Steven's a professional. He's fantastic.
Consummate professional.
But then we get the boarding party on the ship.
Yeah.
And it was not a boring party. It was interesting. We have Doc and her orchid. We have. I felt like Daytak also kind of got cut out of moments on that ship as well.
I did too. It was weird. That's why I was almost like, what's the point of him being there?
Yeah.
He didn't really have a real point or purpose, really.
Except to keep him out of Defiance and to kind of give Stama a reason to be like, I will do whatever I can to help on like on the ground floor,
Right.
like that kind of thing. Like he didn't really do anything. I mean, except for like Orisa probably would not spike Docule in the head.
Yeah.
Like she would. She
Right.
probably wouldn't do that. And we also kind of got.
It's true, but I felt like it was one of those people where you hire like your crew and you're spending a ton of money for this one crew member and they're not really doing anything. That's what I felt like. I was like, oh, we're paying him all this money. He's just kind of sitting there and like sort of helping.
But we did it all paid off for the part where Yule says, like, you know, a cloned human is not the same as
Right.
losing, when she's saying like of course I'm not. This was never
same
a ticket
level
home.
as like a.
And he says, no, you're a real person with enormous honor and an infinite soul. And like that was a great moment.
It was a great moment.
Because Doc basically this entire season has been someone who does not have her own brain, has not been able to think for herself, and has done some amazingly horrible things.
And obviously through all that has lost her confidence and her ability of being like she's worth anything to even exist. So yes, but still we paid him all that money to do that.
I think it was worth it just to have him say that line. That line was awesome.
No, it was awesome, and it came at the right time. And what you said, he had to do that and plunge that into her.
And it was a great
head.
moment for Doc, like to see her kind of have a moment of real vulnerability, and then have to find her comedy again and be like, "Stick it in me,
sailor." I know that was a great line.
But that line was said not to be funny, but it was a defensive mechanism.
Of course.
Like she was either going to cry or say something sarcastic.
But in a way, her one-liners, though they're the best and the comedic relief of the show, in most cases are out of defense. You know, they're not. You know, because of her confidence and everything else, that's her defense mechanism, is that comedy. Yeah. Which in a lot of ways, comedy is that way. You know, it's a way of being able to...
Sure.
You know, so she had that moment, and I thought that was great. And it was, you know, like we said, we could tell from the beginning there that when she was planning that all back down there in Defiance, we knew that it was pretty much a suicide mission for her.
When they're like, how are we going to get back down? She's like, you leave that up to me. And it's like, oh, she's planning on staying with the ship and blowing up.
Yeah, going down with the ship.
And I think she was kind of looking for an honorable end.
Right.
And by Daytak giving that to her, she has honor. She has her honor again. Daytak kind of on this redemption arc, and like so, like honor means quite a bit to him right now.
He has a little bit of his own honor by doing that too, and by being supportive, and
And so, like, I think all of that was it was a good moment for both of them.
Absolutely.
We also see Orisa see that there are children Omek, and her kind of having this realization, like. It's the same thing with any enemy. Is like as soon as you humanize them,
right? How do you do something to actually defeat them?
Yeah, and so like to see
or to have kids involved or anything else, you're like, oh my god, it's a lot harder now to do anything when there's a child there, an innocent child.
Yeah, and so for Orisa to kind of be like, we shouldn't be killing them. We know Orisa this entire season has been kind of trying to figure out like non-violent solutions. She is like in a killing way now, but she is definitely not as trigger happy as Nolan is.
Right.
And definitely is trying to find a solution that doesn't involve mass murder. Right. Which I think is a smart.
Of course. And you know, of course, Daytak kind of brushes aside as like, oh, they'd be the first to like eat my grandson, and
how would you feel that?
Right, exactly. So he tries to help get her out of that mindset. But it was odd as we moved along, and I really thought that she was almost like possessed at one point, you know, when she was so insistent about you know, let's just take the ship away. It was weird because she had like a whole different sort of almost different personality. It was odd. I don't know if you felt the same way at that one moment there.
That moment felt like I thought the acting choice was really interesting. Yeah. Because she did not seem to be acting how she had been the rest of the
Right, that's why I felt disjointed a little bit. Season. It almost felt like she was possessed, or she had some, you know, almost because I was feeling like when we had all those drones and everything, I was like, there's something, kind of the same thing with Docule, something going in her neck. Was she feeling like she was almost controlled?
But while I was watching it, I was thinking of like, it's a kid standing up to her dad, and I don't know if she 100% believed in what if the character of Orisa 100% believed in what she was saying. And so I think that's why it kind of felt inorganic, is that it was her not only trying to convince Nolan but also convince herself.
Yeah, it was just a weird, but it was just a weird way.
It was very odd moment. The lighting was weird too.
Yeah, it was odd. So that's why I think it kind of felt a little disjointed. But kind of backtracking a bit is that whole moment where Nolan's trying to do everything with the ship, and obviously Kinsey conveniently appears at just the right time. Always with the great timing. Yeah. If you're a villain, you know, you always have to
show up right before someone does something important.
Right. So she does. And just like in a lot of other shows and movies and everything, we see that it ends up being pretty easy to kill her off.
Well, I mean, to be fair, she had been spiked in the neck earlier that day. She was in a firefight. She's
right. Yes. No, I mean there was definitely things, but I mean obviously just by throwing her over and she falls through the engine or whatever thing those were.
Well, I think what they were doing is they were showing, like, it almost rhymed when Kenzie killed Tevkin, where Kenzie, I think, had assumed she'd won. And once again, someone takes a knife out and stabs the person in the neck and kicks him over. And she's in an engine.
Eaten up there.
I thought that fight was actually extremely interesting narrative-wise.
No, I loved it narrative-wise, and I loved the fight scene itself. And I knew that it had to kind of happen there, that final like showdown. But for me, it felt like a lot of other things where you have this huge build-up with this evil villain, and then you have this one fight scene that you can't seem to take them down, and then they're more or less easily killed off. When it's all said and done in the big picture, when this all-powerful creature... But it had to happen, and you also had to happen, like in a lot of other shows and movies, you had to have it happen quickly because you had so much other things you had to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. And
it was good.
And I think storytelling-wise, I think it was a great fight. To see Kenzie just dominate Nolan the entire time. And once again, Nolan, a lot of the characters in the show are cockroaches. Like, Nolan refuses to die and like keeps looking for ways. Kenzie has dominated him. There's no way he can beat her. She's on top of him, about to bite his heart out.
Right. I mean, you're right there.
And he grabs her knife and stabs her in the neck and kicks her. Like, the knife in the neck probably didn't kill her.
No.
It's the kick over,
and then she gets
into the engines where she gets vivisected. I thought that was a really good fight. I thought it was hilarious that Nolan's solution for I don't know what to do with this computer is he just tasers it.
Yeah, that was funny.
And then Doc comes back online. And then we get this moment where the heroes have won. They've overheated the engines. They've the ship's going to explode.
Yes, they basically set out what they needed to accomplish. They did.
Daytak's back on Earth. And Orisa confronts Nolan and says, like, I'm not comfortable committing genocide.
Right.
I'm going to stay on the ship, and I'm going to figure out a way to make sure that they don't die. And Nolan kind of has a moment where he's like, he's proud of her. Right. He's proud that she's fighting for what she believes in. And, like, Doc's like, this energy has to go somewhere. He's like, can we vent it? And like, yeah, but you'll end up somewhere random in space.
Yeah.
It was like, that's exactly what I'm thinking. They're going to go on a space adventure.
But it was also a way to keep Docu alive.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a way of being able to have a nice, neat way of keeping that going.
Oh, I've got a few theories about Docu when we get into predictions. Yeah. Not yet. No.
He fell for it.
Dang it. Stephen Lemieux.
It only took 3 times.
I said you were a constant professional.
And now he just ruined that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, we see him taser Orisa and do the thing that all dads do in all narrative storylines.
Of course.
Which is kind of sacrifice himself so that she can live on Earth.
Exactly, and say, you have the one life to live, you need to go live it, let me deal with this.
And we've got 2 people who've committed a lot of war crimes, because before Doc was in Defiance, she was basically a Dr. Mangala type character, where she committed a lot of war crimes and like illegal scientific experiments on humans. So we've got 2 characters who kind of don't need to be on Earth.
Like, absolutely, because like Nolan was saying earlier to Amanda, it's like they're out to get them.
Yeah,
VC are going to come out and be like, okay, you need to pay for.
And he's also the butcher.
What you did exactly, but I mean that's just the latest though. Yeah. So you know, this is an easy way to keep them going and to be able to keep Docu alive. Because when that whole thing at the beginning of that suicide mission, when I knew, I was like, we were not getting rid of Docu.
Yeah.
She is my favorite character. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still crazy the way it added that extra twist there at the end.
Yeah,
I mean, it
for
really,
sure.
really, really was. I was not expecting that either. Another twist.
Yeah. And so Nolan becomes a space captain.
Yeah.
And Doc Yule...
Space cowboy.
And Doc Yule is his ship. And we get Orisa and Daytak back on Earth.
Safe on back on Earth, yep.
Yeah, and we get... The Ark gets remade as a hologram.
As a hologram, yeah, it was interesting. It kind of had a vibe that took me back to like 9/11 in a weird like a way when you're doing like in sort of like a memoriam kind of thing, but yet as a way to unite everybody.
Yeah.
And that's what it kind of felt like to me, because then they had the big spotlight and everything, and the whole town gathers and everyone's in a good place because they're back to being safe.
And it gets named after Nolan.
And it gets named after Nolan, yeah.
And we kind of get this great ending where it's just like, now Orisa's the lawkeeper. I was, we were wrong. I thought they were building up for Luke to be the lawkeeper.
For Locke to be the lawkeeper. But I was wondering if they were
Locke.
both.
Yeah, not Luke.
I wonder if they were both going to kind of be working it. I'm still trying to.
I think Berlin's got to be her.
Yeah,
like,
but it's like a third, sort of. I don't know. Like, because I feel like they were with him, and it seems like it would be a good office romance for them in season 4.
Yeah, sure.
No HR there to have to get in the way.
There's no human resources.
No.
There's no Votan resources either.
Votan resources.
Yeah.
So, they could have this office romance and they don't have to worry.
And then we follow Nolan's trail out into space.
I love that whole ending,
beautiful.
though. That beautiful stuff and I was like, they've used all the rest of their budget on that.
Yeah.
Just as you're flying through all the different wormholes and black holes and they're going through space. But it was great, too. It was sort of like that end so that we knew they were still alive out there.
Yeah.
Because, at the end there, you're kind of guessing.
Smirk from Nolan.
Yeah, you're kind of guessing, though, because it's sort of like a past tense with Orisa, like, oh, if he was around, if he was here, wherever he is. So it was nice to kind of have that, too, just knowing, okay, he is out there somewhere, and he's still alive.
Yeah.
Because it could have been one of those things that just kind of leave it really up for debate, but they didn't, which reminds me of a lot of other season finales or even series finales. You're like, okay, well, that character's still out there.
They tied that up,
Yeah, so we knew.
Yeah.
So it was a good way, very, very good way to ending. But the interesting thing is that Orisa told Amanda, that he was dead, which, wow.
Well, no, Orisa said that Amanda
thinks
that
that's
he's dead,
but she didn't correct
she was like, but she doesn't know him,
right?
Like, yeah,
right. That's what I meant. Like, I mean, in the sense that she didn't really say like, oh no, he's not. But it was so that was a way to kind of resolve that, because it was interesting. They sort of had this, even though they've had that relationship in the past, they really kind of made it seem like they were heading towards having an actual legit relationship again with Amanda and Nolan. Yeah. And so it was really fascinating.
Well, I think that's how they were kind of using that to kind of misdirect us and thinking like, oh, it's going to be a relationship. Nolan can't be stuck in space or die because there's this relationship that has to happen.
But no.
It's like, nuh-uh. Pull that rug out.
They sure did.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, that I wanted to bring up, because you actually looked this up, is that the title of the episode.
I was about to say that.
Okay,
is from a stanza in a Walt Whitman poem. And the entire poem is all about... It's interesting because it ends with Orisa as the lawkeeper. And a lot of the lines in the poem, it's about pioneers, it's about manifest destiny, which is like a overall theme that this entire show has, where basically Earth was manifest destiny by aliens.
Right. And what we continue with this whole overall season, too, with Ram Talk, and his whole thing was very manifest destiny as well.
And like the Olmec also believed that they were the ones that were supposed to take over Earth. But in the poem also, a lot of it is about like the older people giving in to the younger generations and letting them flourish.
Right.
And at the end of this, we kind of see Alak and Orisa and Berlin are all kind of featured.
Yeah, the new
at the end. So it's like this is the new kind of, because with Nolan and Doc out, that's a lot of the line load that's just not there anymore.
Right.
That's a huge amount of the line load.
Obviously, and Samir, too, would have to somehow...
And Samir...
is the younger one, and would have to somehow take the place of Doc Yule there in Defiance. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very fitting for this finale.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think this time it's real. This time...
Steven, it's so real right now.
It's so real. Predictions.
AfterBuzz TV News.
No, not news.
Oh!
Predictions.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
The short one.
Wow, really short.
I like it.
Wow, okay, so... Oh, first of all, too, we did not see Pilar.
No,
we
no
did
Pilar.
not see Pilar this episode, and I really thought we were going to see her. She's still out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Yeah, what do you think? You have a lot of things that you were...
Okay, so if this, I don't think the show knows if it's going to be picked up for another season.
Right, that's how it kind of feels, because it's sort of like this could go either way.
It feels like they set up for another season,
Absolutely.
but it also feels like if this is the last episode, it's a fine last episode.
Yes, it's a good series finale of knowing,
Yeah.
okay, well, we know Nolan's out there and he's safe, and him and Doc have now escaped, and we see that everyone's kind of tied up their loose ends on Defiance and on Earth. Yes.
So here's my big thing. If it comes back, I think it is a lot about the new cast. I think it's everything like that.
Yes.
I think that there's a way that Doc Yule can be in space and be in Defiance. And I think that's because Kenzie made all of those clones of her. And there's still a clone of Doc Yule under that water in that like science laboratory. So we could have...
It's true. She could be discovered and...
Clone Doc Yule in Defiance and Space Doc Yule Prime out in space with Nolan. Yeah.
That's true. Yes, because that's right. She's still out there with the clone. And like you said, it's like we could focus on this Alak and Orisa, the kind of like the new generation.
Yeah.
Helping run the town. Obviously, there could be a whole different directions you could go in as far as new threats. With the, we haven't really resolved the Berlin's backstory there. So are the E-Rep going to come back, or the VC? Is there going to be another clash? So you definitely have it set up for new season. Obviously, Pilar's still out there potentially. So you have a lot of stuff still out there that you could definitely mine and work with in the new season. And then you still leave it open.
And you've got Nolan and Doc in
That's
space.
What I'm saying. You still leave it open with Nolan and Doc in space. So you could even focus on somewhere they end up.
Some adventures of them in space.
Some crazy new planet with life forms.
Maybe they wake up in Olmec. They have a fun Olmec sidekick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. They could end up on some other planet with the Olmec. There could be a whole other sort of... parallel universe storytelling going on. They could be flung back to Earth through whatever planet. There's so much potential. Now that we know they're still okay, we know that there's a chance for them to come back, because for a while it sort of felt like, wow, you're taking off with two main characters, and how do you keep the story going? But as we've talked about this whole season, is that there's so many different perspectives and angles that you can take from Defiance with these main characters. And now that we know that pretty much all the main characters are alive still, you still have a good starting
really
point,
wide open,
right, of a whole new season and being able to start with a whole new direction. So it'll be interesting to see, because like you said, it kind of wrapped it up in a way that it could go either direction. So let's hope there's a season 4. I feel like this was an incredibly strong season.
This was by far the best season.
Best season by far by a landslide, but also just the whole setup, the action, the adventure, the backstories, having that plot device, really getting to know these characters.
They tied everything
really
up
deep
really
level,
well, except for Pilar.
Except for Pilar and Berlin, really.
Yeah, and
I felt like Berlin was a kind of a throwaway.
Yeah.
But yes, and knowing these characters, and it was just a really, really well done, well executed, fun season, and really has gotten me heavily invested now. Yeah. Yeah. So
hopefully there's
here's
another
to
one.
a season 4.
Yeah.
We'll see. Only time will tell.
All right.
It's a good season. It's been great being here on the panel with you.
Yeah, man. It was fun.
And where can they find you in the interim?
Guys, you can find me on Twitter at JessKlein1. That's JessKlein, the number 1. Starting up at the end of September, it's S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC. I'm on that panel. That's a fun panel.
Yeah.
You can find me every Tuesday at 11 o'clock in the Video Game Vault on YouTube. That's live on YouTube. That's it. Thank you guys so much for such a great season. I had a bunch of fun.
Yeah, it's been a great season. You can find me on Twitter at sman80. That's sman80, and I'll be back soon-ish. Not definitely for Archer. That kicks back in January.
Awesome.
But in the meantime, definitely, find us on YouTube and subscribe, and iTunes and SoundCloud. And again, keep the conversation going on Twitter using hashtag ABTV Defiance. It's been a good season, guys. We'll see you soon.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.